أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، حمدا كثيرا طيبا طاهرا مباركا فيه، وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا من لدنك علما نافعا يا أرحم الراحمين. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and peace and blessings be upon His beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Inshallah ta'ala, we'll be continuing with the brief and short lessons of fiqh, of ablution, of purification and salat with the Fridays. And inshallah ta'ala, we'll be continuing where we left off, where we stopped before the month of Ramadan, in which we had mentioned the sunan, the acts of sunnah in wudu, and the acts which are disliked in wudu, and the manners and so forth. And today we'll begin with, inshallah, the nullifiers of wudu, the acts or the matters that nullify, that invalidate one's wudu. Now, as we know, a person makes tahara, makes wudu to enable them to do and to perform certain acts of worship. And mainly, we make wudu for prayer. When we want to pray, we make wudu, as the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, لا يقبل الله صلاة أحدكم إذا أحدث حتى يتوضأ. Allah does not accept the prayer of anyone that has invalidated their wudu until they make wudu. So we want to learn what matters or what things invalidate my wudu. Meaning that I've performed wudu for ibadah, I've performed wudu for prayer, for reciting the Quran, for doing tawaf, for so forth. I've made my wudu. Okay, what things now invalidate that wudu? In which I have to redo it again, and I have to make that wudu again. The first matter that nullifies one wudu, that we know, anything that exits from the private parts. Anything that exits from the private parts, whether it's urine, whether it's wind, whether it's feces, whether it's al-madhi for the men, which is pre-cum, whether it's wadi, which is a thicker substance that exits as well due to any certain effects that the body can have. Sometimes if the person's in a very cold state, they can have wadi, which is a thick substance that exits after the urine. After the urine. This is also a nullifier of wudu. So anything, put in your mind, very simply, very easy. Anything that exits from the private parts nullifies the wudu. Nullifies the wudu. Whether it's a small amount or a large amount. Whether it's a drop or more than that. So anything that exits from either of the two private parts, for the male or the female, then that is something that what? That is something that nullifies the wudu. That is something that nullifies the wudu. When Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, as we mentioned in the hadith, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, أَوْ جَاءَ أَحَدٌ مِّنْكُم مِّنَ الْغَائِطِ, or one of you has come from al-gha'it. Al-gha'it is what? Al-gha'it is the place in which the person performs the either urinating or so forth. So going, Nabi, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, أَوْ جَاءَ أَحَدٌ مِّنْكُم مِّنَ الْغَائِطِ. Al-gha'it itself is the feces itself. So saying if someone comes from there, meaning if someone does any action in which they have either urinated or used the toilet. Once you've used the toilet, whether it's a small amount or a large amount, then that is something that nullifies one's wudu. Nullifies one's wudu. And this is something that is agreed upon. This is something that is agreed upon between the ulama. No, none of the scholars, none of the madhahib differ with regards to this being a nullifier of wudu. That if a person uses the bathroom, does a number one or a number two, doesn't matter, urinates or does a number two, then they have to make their wudu. They have to renew their wudu. Or if the man has al-madhi, which is pre-cum, and that comes due to shahwa, due to the person having a desire, seeing something. With each person is different. a man came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, Ya Rasulullah, inni rajulun madha. Rasulullah, I am a man who this happens to them a lot. Does it nullify my wudu? He said, yes. He said, you have to renew wudu and you clean the area in which that takes place. And you have to clean the private part. Because the substance that comes out is najis. The substance that comes out is impure, is najasa. So it has to be cleaned. And the area has to be cleaned. And you have to renew the wudu. And you have to renew the wudu. Now, so the first thing is anything that comes out of the private parts, whether it's a small amount or a large amount. Anything that comes out of the private part, whether it's a small or large amount. Secondly, bleeding. If a person bleeds, if a person has a wound, or a person has a pus that exits from the body, from the skin, or anything that comes out from the skin itself, whether it's blood or pus, or al-qayh. Al-qayh is that a yellowish substance that can be under when you have a pimple or you have something. It's called al-qayh. So anything that comes out of the skin. This is a difference of opinion between the ulama. And we only mention the Hanafi and the Shafi'i opinion. The Hanafi opinion is that anything that bleeds, if the blood runs, then it nullifies the wudu. If the blood, you cut yourself and blood comes out, if it runs on its own, then it's nullified the wudu. If it remains where it is, it doesn't nullify the wudu. So they differentiated between what is considered to be a small amount and what is considered to be a larger amount. Whereas the Shafi'i madhab and the majority of the scholars, they say that wudu doesn't invalidate by the person bleeding. Whether it's a small amount, whether it's a large amount. So here, the Hanafi madhab looked at the blood rolling or running down. If it does, the wudu has invalidated, according to the Hanafi madhab. According to the Shafi'i madhab, it doesn't matter. And the Shafi'i madhab, from the opinion or from the proofs that they use for their opinion, is first of all the famous hadith with the man who was standing in prayer as an eye for the army of the Muslimin at night, when they were out in an expedition, and there were two companions who were standing as guard, as an eye for the army of the Muslimin. So one of them went to sleep and the other one remained awake. They said, we'll take shifts. So the one that went to sleep, the one that remained awake, he said, I'll stand up, what better can I do at the moment? I'll pray. I'll pray in salat. And he's praying sunnah, so if anything happens around him, he can inform. He can say, he can break his salat, because it's sunnah. Because it's sunnah. So this man, he stands in prayer, and one of the enemies whom a family member, and this incident took place when they were returning. One of the people that were killed in the battle, in the expedition, was from his tribe or from his family. So he wanted revenge, so he saw one of them standing and he shot him with an arrow. He shot him with an arrow. And as the man is praying, he got shot with that arrow. He continued his prayer until he finished. And then he woke up the companion that was with him. So the companion said to him, what made you not wake me up when you first got hit? He said, I was reciting a surah, a chapter that I love, that I enjoy, and I didn't want to break it. I didn't want to stop the recitation, so I continued. So I continued. So that they use that as a, if it was a nullifier of wudu, he would have stopped his prayer, because that would have invalidated his prayer. The other hadith, which there's weakness in it, that the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he did hijama. He did hijama and he didn't make wudu after it, except that he washed the areas of the hijama. Except that he washed the areas of the hijama. Here, some of the ulama, they combined between the two opinions. Like Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, they combined between the two opinions. They said that the small amount of blood is forgiven. But if the person is bleeding profusely, like Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. Umar al-Khattab, when he got stabbed by the coward Abu Lu'lu al-Majusi, when he got stabbed by Abu Lu'lu al-Majusi, la'anahullah, he stopped his prayer. He was bleeding profusely because he got stabbed. He had a double-edged dagger and he got stabbed with it. He got stabbed with it and he got stabbed in his chest, and some say in his shoulder. And he didn't stab him just once. He stabbed him and then he ran. And then he ran away. And then as the Sahaba jumped on him, he killed himself. And that's why they call him Al-Jaban, the coward. Abu Lu'lu'a al-Majusi, because he killed himself. So here, Umar radiallahu anhu, he stopped his prayer. He stopped his prayer. So they say that because of the large amount of blood. And either way, ad-dam is considered as a najasa. So if you have blood on you, you have to wipe it off, wash it off. If you have blood on you, you have to wash it off in order for you to be able to pray. It might not nullify your wudu if you go according to the Shafi'i madhab, but if there is blood on you, you have to what? Clean it. You have to wash it off. So the Ahnaf, as we said, the small amount to them is the amount that doesn't run, doesn't drip. It doesn't drip. And that with anything that drips or runs nullifies the wudu. The Shafi'i madhab, they said it doesn't matter whether it's small amount or large amount, it doesn't nullify the wudu. The third thing that is mentioned by the ulama is vomiting. Vomiting. Does vomiting make the person lose the wudu or not? Here, vomiting, to begin with, we differentiate between that which fills the mouth and that which doesn't fill the mouth. Sometimes you have a small amount of vomit that comes up and it comes to your mouth and you swallow it or you spill it out. But it's not continuous. And it's not you're vomiting and it's a large amount. It's a small amount. Sometimes you've eaten too much, or you're running, or you're doing something after you've eaten, so a small amount comes out. If it's less, أقل من ملء الفم, it's less than a mouthful, then it doesn't nullify the wudu. If it's mouthful and more, like a normal person that vomits, when they're vomiting, they're continuous, they vomit and then they stop, then they vomit and they stop, and so forth, then that nullifies the wudu. And they use the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that which has been narrated, that النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قاء فتوضأ. He vomited and then he made wudu. And Imam al-Tirmidhi said هذا أصح شيء في الباب. Imam al-Tirmidhi said this is the most correct hadith in the chapter, or in this chapter itself. So here the ulama, they say that which is not a mouthful is that which you are not able to keep your mouth closed while you are vomiting. And if you're vomiting and you're able to keep your mouth closed, then it's not a mouthful. But if you're vomiting and you have to open your mouth to release it, then that's more than a mouthful. Then that nullifies the wudu, and this is according to the Hanafi madhab. The Shafi'i madhab, they say that vomiting does not nullify the wudu. The Shafi'i madhab says that vomiting does not nullify the wudu. And they go by the proof that the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam قاء فلم يتوضأ. He vomited and then he did not make wudu. And this is something, subhanallah, the Ahnaf, they have the hadith قاء فتوضأ. He vomited, then he made wudu. Shafi'iyya have the hadith, and it's not, and when we say hadith, we mean narration. The hadith here is not the Prophet ﷺ said, if you vomit, make wudu. Here the narration is the Sahaba saw the Prophet ﷺ vomit, and then he made wudu. Another one is that they saw him vomit, not make wudu. So the Ahnaf, they took the narration that says that he vomited and made wudu, and the Shafi'iyya took the hadith or the narration that says he vomited and did not make wudu. So how do you give preference? To which of the two do you give preference? The Ahnaf have the usul and the Shafi'iyya have the usul. The Shafi'iyya have the usul. And the reason we mention this is to see and to understand that every Imam of the four madhahib, whether it's Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad, each of them does not mention an opinion unless they have proof. Unless they have proof. Whether you agree with it or not, that's a different matter. Whether you agree with the strengthening of it or giving preference to it or not, that's a different matter. This is a place of ijtihad. This is the place of debating, giving preference, tarjih, as we say. Giving preference to one over the other. Imam Abu Hanifa, he came to the conclusion that the narration that says he vomited and then made wudu is stronger. And they have a qaida shar'iyya, and majority of ulama have a qaida shar'iyya, al-muthbitu muqaddim ala al-nafi. The one who is affirming is given preference over the one who is negating. Yani the one who is confirming a matter is given preference over the one who is saying no, he didn't. And the one who is saying yes, he did make wudu, his confirmation overrides the one that says no, he didn't. Al-muthbit muqaddam ala al-nafi. The one who's given confirmation. But here, as we said, that the madhahib in itself, and this is very important to understand, that the madhahib in itself, you have to be, as a student of knowledge, as a person who is seeking ilm, you have to understand that the ulama do not mention an opinion unless they have proof. Unless they have proof to their opinion. And then the step after that, whether you agree or not agree, whether you think that it's stronger or that the other proof is stronger, that's ijtihad. That's where the door is open for ijtihad. That's where the door is open for ijtihad. And there's certain things that you can't do ijtihad with. Yani there's certain matters that you can't say, maybe it means something else. I'll give you an example. The iddah, the waiting period of the female who is divorced, how long is it? 3 menstrual cycles. 3 menstrual cycles. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَالْمُطَلَّقَاتُ يَتَرَبَّصْنَ بِأَنفُسِهِنَّ ثَلَاثَةَ قُرُوء. ثَلَاثَةَ قُرُوء. So here in the Arabic language, the divorced females, they have a waiting period of 3 menstrual cycles. Here the word 3 in Arabic, ثلاثة. The word 3 in Arabic can only ever mean what? 3. And if someone was to come today and to say, وَالْمُطَلَّقَاتُ يَتْرَبَّصْنَ بِأَنفُسِهِنَّ ثَلَاثَةَ قُرُوء. Here ثلاثة means 4. Here ثلاثة means 4. Or ثلاثة means 2. Because it could have a different meaning. We tell him no. ثلاثة is always going to mean 3. 3 is always going to mean 3. I told you you have to wait 3 menstrual cycles. He said, the Shaykh, he meant 2. No, I didn't mean 2. I meant 3. 3 can only be understood as 3. But quru, cycles, that's where the ikhtilaf is. Is it bleeding? Is it hayd? Or is it tuhr? Why? Because quru in the Arabic language means both. Means both. So there's things that you can't open the door for ijtihad, like numbers. But there are things that it is open to ijtihad, like that which you have mentioned from the hadith of, or the narrations that mention that he vomited, made wudu, he vomited, didn't make wudu. We mentioned the Imam al-Tirmidhi, he gave preference to the narration that he vomited and then made wudu. Because when he narrated it in his Sunan, in his book As-Sunan or Al-Jami', he said, هذا أصح شيء في الباب. He said, this narration is the most correct of narration in the chapter. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. So here we have anything that comes out, exits from the private parts, whether it's small amount or large amount, bleeding according to the Hanafi madhab, if it runs and if it moves from its position, then it nullifies the wudu. If it doesn't nullify the wudu. The Shafi'i madhab, it doesn't nullify the wudu, whether it's a small amount or a large amount. Some of the ulama, we said, have combined between the two opinions, and they said if it's a small amount, then it doesn't. If it's a large amount, then it does. The third thing is, we mentioned vomiting. The Ahnaf say that it does. If it's more than a mouthful, then it does. The Shafi'i madhab says it doesn't, whether it's more than a mouthful or not. As well, that which nullifies the wudu is the presence of blood in the mouth that overwhelms the spit. How do you know if it overwhelms the spit? When you spit. If you spit and it comes out red, then you have it's bleeding. That it's really bleeding. So when you spit out and the spit comes out and it's red, it's all blood, that means that you're bleeding in your mouth. Hanafi madhab, you have to make wudu. If you spit and it's not red, it just has a bit of yellowish in it, that means that it's not bleeding. And that means that you don't have to what? Renew your wudu, or you don't have to make your wudu again. So that's something that's easy. When you see blood, if you spit and the spit that you have spit out is red, you've broken your wudu according to the Hanafi madhab. Shafi'i madhab is said either way, it doesn't nullify the wudu. Now, also that which nullifies the wudu is sleeping. If the person is not firmly grounded, if their backside is not firmly grounded on the floor, like I am now, for instance. If I'm sitting like this and I fall asleep and then I wake up, my wudu is still valid. My wudu is still valid. Why? Because I've pressed down on the backside, the exit. The exit. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, Al-aynani wuka'u sahi. The eyes are that which keep the muscles tensed from releasing air. فَإِذَا نَامَ فَمَنْ نَامَ فَلْيَتَوَضَّأ. Because when you go to sleep, it's like a rope, they say. وُكَاءُ السَّهِ is a rope that's tied. Once you go to sleep, it's like you're untying it and you're releasing it. Which means that when you are asleep, of course you have control over defecating and so forth, but you don't have control over releasing air. You don't have control over releasing air. So here, the action has been put in place of the nullifier. Because we know that releasing air nullifies the wudu. If a person has released air, it nullifies the wudu. Here, sleeping has been put in place of releasing air. Why? Because sleeping itself, there is a very high possibility that you are going to what? Release air. Why? Because when you go to sleep, your muscles, not completely, but your muscles, they loosen up. The muscles, they loosen up and you're going to release air. So if you're sitting down, then that means that you will not lose your wudu. Why? What's the proof for that? The narration that mentions that the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they used to wait in the masjid for Salatul Isha, wa ru'usum, and their heads used to be what? Asleep. And then when the iqamah will be made, they'll get up and they'll pray without making wudu. But they will be sitting in a position that what? That controls, or that they are in control of the exit of the wind. If a person dozes off but is still aware of their surroundings, then it doesn't nullify the wudu. And if you're laying down and you have your eyes closed and you're dozing off, but you can still hear everything, you're still aware. You're still aware of what's happening. You can still hear everything. Then that doesn't lose the wudu. The sleeping that loses the wudu is when you lose consciousness. When you lose consciousness, meaning that someone has to come and what? And tap you to wake up. But if you're laying down and your eyes are closed and you're dozing off and I call you, Ya Muhammad, and you answer me, then you're not asleep. But if I call you Muhammad and you don't answer and I have to come to you and I have to tap you, yalla, get up, khalas, you've gone to sleep. You have to renew your wudu. You have to renew your wudu. And the maq'ada, when we mean by tamkeen al-maq'ada, is that you have to have control of your sitting. An example, for instance, if a person falls asleep in salat. We've had that happen before. Person falls asleep in salat, in sujood. Went down to sujood, the imam in salatul, either in salatul tahajjud or in salatul fajr, the imam goes down to sujood, he takes a bit longer time, and you find people, they what? They doze off. It's happened before. A lot of times it happens with kids, haram yani. The kids come to the fajr prayer, and the imam doesn't take long, but takes longer than usual in sujood, and you find the kid is gone, he's asleep. As long as the position of sujood hasn't changed, and as long as you're still in the position of sujood, and then you realize and you continue, your wudu is still valid. But if you're in sujood, you fall asleep, and then you move to your side, or you go onto your stomach, then your wudu is gone. But if you remain in your position that you were in, then your wudu continues. Now, also that which nullifies. So with regards to sleeping, as we said, if the person is sitting down and the backside is firmly grounded on the ground and they fall asleep, then they still have their wudu. But if the person is sitting down, sitting on the wall like that, then that nullifies the wudu. The wudu is nullified. They have to be completely on the ground. That because when you're sitting like this, and to be completely honest, if the person even wants to release air, if you're sitting like that, can you release air? You have to move a bit forward. It's true. You have to move a bit forward. Why? Because khalas, it's closed. The exit is closed. Yeah, it's closed. It's tied. So you have to move. And that's why the ulama, they say that sitting like that, khalas, it doesn't leave any room for the person to release air. As we said, the sleep itself, if a person is lying down, if they are still conscious, aware of their surroundings, then that doesn't nullify the wudu. But if they completely lose awareness, lose track, meaning, an example, we're sitting down, we're talking, and he's laying down next to us, and he falls asleep and then wakes up and doesn't remember what we were talking about. You say, didn't you remember we were saying this day? He said, no, I went unconscious, khalas, that's it, gone. Meaning, even that if we're sitting down and he falls asleep for 2 minutes and then wakes up, it happens. Wakes up, he says, we are around him, we said, you didn't release any air. Even so, even if 100% he didn't release air, just by sleeping, khalas, that's it. You have to renew the wudu. Also with that is losing of consciousness, either by fainting or by falling insane, becoming insane, or through drinking alcohol, losing ability and awareness through alcohol, becoming unconscious, in which you're not able to control yourself. If these things take place, then you have to also renew the wudu. You have to also, and these are things, unless I mention the khilaf, it means that it's agreed upon. Unless I mention the khilaf, it means that the matter is agreed upon. The one thing that there's a difference of opinion is that with regards to sitting down, if the person's sitting like this and their back is to the wall. Here some of the ulama have said that if the wall was to be removed and the person would fall back, then it nullifies the wudu. Because if your back is dependent upon the wall, it means that you no longer have full weight on your backside. So there can be a release of air. So that's the only thing that they mention with regards to that. We'll end on on laughing in salat. Laughing in salat, al-qahqaha. There's 3 levels of laughing. We know laughing as one. There's 3 levels of laughing. Al-qahqaha in Arabic language is when the person laughs and the people around him hear. That's called al-qahqaha. And from the word itself, al-qahqaha, I mean persons made noise that the people around them can hear. And then you have al-dahik. Al-dahik is when you laugh and you only yourself can hear. Like the internal laugh. And I'm laughing but no one else around, or no one can hear me laugh. And then you have at-tabassum. You have at-tabassum. At-tabassum is smiling. Tabassum is smiling. And Nabi sallallahu the Sahabi say, tabassama hatta badat nawajidhu. And nawajidh are the front molar teeth. So he'd smile until his front teeth would be showing. That's tabassum. Tabassum in salat doesn't nullify the wudu. Yani smiling in salat doesn't nullify the wudu. Al-qahqaha, laughing and people surrounding you hearing, it's agreed upon that it nullifies the salat. And if we're praying and a person just breaks out laughing, person just begins to laugh and we all hear them or hear him, or those who are next to him hear him, his salat is invalid. He has to repeat the salat. In the Hanafi madhab, not only is his salat invalid, but he has to make wudu again. He has to make wudu again. And they use the hadith, which the majority of the scholars, the rest of the scholars, they say it's weak, that a man was walking as the Sahaba were praying and he tripped and he fell in a hole of water, in a puddle of water. So some of the Sahaba that were there, they saw it and they laughed. They saw it and they laughed. And they continued praying. When Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam continued praying, then he turned around after he finished. He said, whoever laughed in their prayer, let them make up their prayer and make up their wudu. And the Ahnaf, they say that the reason for making up the wudu is a punishment. A punishment. Because you are in salat, no matter what happens, you should not laugh in a loud voice. You should not laugh no matter what happens. In salat, you should not laugh with a loud voice. Why? Because you're in a position of calling, standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why the Ahnaf have that opinion. The rest of the ulama, they say it only invalidates the salat. I mean, they have to repeat the salat again, which is something that is agreed upon between the ulama. Now, as we said, laughing interiorly, or laughing and only yourself hearing that laugh, that only invalidates the salat. That only invalidates the salat. So here, smiling doesn't invalidate the salat. Laughing but no one next to you hearing invalidates the salat. Laughing and people next to you hearing invalidates the salat and wudu, according to the Hanafi madhab. The only difference with the rest is that laughing and hearing, or everyone around you hearing, the majority of scholars say that it only invalidates what? The salat, and not the wudu. You don't have to make up the wudu again. The Hanafi madhab says you have to make up the wudu again as a punishment, because you're in salat and you should know better than to laugh in that sense, in that way, in salat. In salat. Wallahu ta'ala a'la wa a'lam. There's a couple more points with regards to the nullifiers of wudu, which we'll mention next Friday inshallah, and some other related matters to the nullification of wudu, like having doubt and so forth. So inshallah ta'ala we'll continue with them next week. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Every Muslim dreams to be up in Jannah, 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 Jannah. A pious person's destiny. Inshallah in Jannah, 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 Jannah.